I used to believe that being emotionally distant was a strength. As a university lecturer, my job was to educate, evaluate, and prepare minds for the real world, not to coddle them. I arrived at my office at 7:30 every morning, reviewed my lecture notes, and delivered each session with precision and clarity. Students respected me for my structure, for my fairness, even for my coldness. Or so I thought. There were always students who struggled. I noted them on spreadsheets, added comments like frequent absences or needs improvement, and moved on. I didn't have time to dive into every story. If someone failed, it wasn't personal. It was a system. I trusted the system. That's why, when I got the email about Jordan's death, I didn't feel anything at first. Jordan Ramirez, sociology major, final year. I remembered the name faintly, the way I remembered hundreds of others. The email said he had taken his life over the weekend. There would be a memorial on Thursday. I marked it on my calendar like any other meeting, but something in the way the dean had written it, something formal yet restrained, stayed with me. I read the email again, slower this time, then a third time. The silence in my office felt heavier than usual. I stared at my bookshelves for a long time without seeing any titles. I didn't cry. I didn't gasp. I just sat there perfectly still as a vague discomfort settled into my bones. The memorial came and went like most do. Flowers, quiet tears, the soft rustle of tissues and coats. I stood in the back, hands folded, listening to students share memories that felt foreign to me. Their grief was warm, familiar, real. Mine was clinical, detached, like watching rain fall behind glass. It wasn't until the following Monday that I was summoned to the dean's office. I assumed it was to discuss Jordan's academic record or prepare a statement, but instead he handed me an envelope. The paper trembled slightly in his hand, but his voice remained level as he said it had been found near Jordan's body. My name was on the first line, not as a salutation, not even accusatory, just placed there, as if it meant something self-evident. I took the letter home. I didn't read it that night. I placed it on my desk and stared at it, the weight of it unspoken but felt. The next morning I returned to my usual routine, coffee, lecture notes, passive silence in the faculty lounge. But everything felt hollow, like walking through the shell of a life that used to fit. By Thursday I opened the letter. The handwriting was neat, careful. There were no dramatic declarations, no final outbursts. It was quiet, too quiet. He wrote of pressure, of deadlines, of always feeling like he was slightly behind the curve. He wrote of not knowing how to ask for help without feeling like a failure. He mentioned certain professors, though not by name, except once, mine. He referenced an email he had sent 2 weeks before he died. I checked. It was there, buried beneath automated submissions and administrative reminders, a subject line I never opened. I marked it unread and moved on with my day, like I had with so many others. I read his letter twice that night, then again the next morning. Each time it burned more. By the fourth reading, I wasn't scanning anymore. I was searching, not for closure, not even for meaning. I was looking for myself inside those lines. I wanted to believe I wasn't as central to his decision as that first sentence suggested. I wanted to find proof that my name was incidental, misplaced, irrelevant. But there it was, tucked in the final paragraph, a single line, written more gently than any other part of the letter, almost like a whisper inside my head. I just wanted you to notice me. The words struck with the violence of silence. There was no accusation in them, no plea, just an honest, devastating admission. He had sat in my class for months, maybe longer. I couldn't even picture his face clearly. All I could see now was an empty chair. I tried to remember, had he ever raised his hand? Had he waited after class to speak? Had I brushed him off with the same cold professionalism I wore like armor? My mind clawed through fragmented memories, but everything blurred. My certainty about who I was as an educator, as a person, unraveled. It wasn't the guilt that broke me. It was the realization that he never needed me to fix anything. He just needed me to see him. A simple human act. One I had withheld. My chest tightened as if something vital had collapsed inward. I didn't cry. The tears stayed locked behind some wall I had built over years of detachment, but my hands trembled when I reached for the paper again. My breath came in shallow waves, and for the first time in a very long time, I felt small. Not because of shame, but because I finally saw the weight of being seen and what happens when we fail to see others. Something changed after that. Not suddenly. Nothing in grief arrives all at once. But over time, the rituals of my life began to feel hollow. The way I walked into lecture halls, the way I graded with clinical detachment, even the language I used on my syllabus, it all felt rehearsed, lifeless. I didn't quit. I didn't vanish. I stayed. But I rewrote my courses from the inside out. I added a blank week in every semester, a space with no lectures or deadlines. Just room. Room to breathe, to ask, to fall apart if needed. I started checking the names behind the submissions. I opened every email, even the ones that felt like noise, especially those. The letter stayed in the top drawer of my desk. I never showed it to anyone. Not out of shame, but because it wasn't mine to share. It belonged to Jordan, and to the version of me who needed to read it again and again until it became a scar instead of a wound. I sometimes walk past the campus memorial where they planted a small tree in his name. It's not large, no plaque, but I stop there more often than I admit, watching how it bends in the wind, how it persists. People say grief fades. Maybe it does. But what stays, what claws its roots into you, is the silence after a truth you didn't want to hear. I live with that silence now. It sits beside me during office hours in the front row of every class I teach. And some nights, when the lights are off and the room is still, I can almost hear his voice behind that one final line. I just wanted you to notice me. I don't know if it's too late to change, but I know I was too late for him.